everyone, it's Morgan and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be talking about Copic Marker Alternatives, some things that may be very essential to my wallet sometimes. So, everybody knows the Copic markers. They're seen as very expensive art supplies, very desirable art supplies, and my goodness do I love them. But let's face reality, no one can afford that many Copics. So we're always looking for better options, but there's always that question, do these better options even compare? And over my years of, drawing and being an artist, I have come across my fair share of Copic Marker Alternatives, and I find that I was a lot more reliant on them in the beginning of my art career, and I don't use them as much anymore. And I'll tell you why. So the first one that I'm going to be comparing to is right here in the screen, Prismacolor. Prismacolor is another very well-known brand, but they're mostly known for their pencils, not for markers. But Prismacolor, the alcohol-based markers are not that bad at all. I think I bought them maybe a month or two after I got my first Copics because I was out in an actual store. I was in Hobby Lobby, I think. And I saw the Prismacolor markers were cheaper, and I was just like, oh, alright, let's pick some of these up. Need a couple colors, here they are, let's go. But there's a couple things that I do and don't like about them. So the first thing I'm going to do is take two very similar colors and lay them down right next to each other. One Copic and one Prismacolor. For Copic, I'm going to be using G17, which is forest green, and I have this in a chow marker, meaning there's a brush nib on one end and the chisel nib on the other end. Just for a little color swatch, I'm going to use my brush nib. And this marker is a little bit old, so it's not the juiciest anymore, but the color still comes out the same way, obviously. But if you're taking a look at Copics for the first time, this is a old marker. They're usually much juicier than this. And for the Prismacolor markers, this is grass green. And the only thing that I don't like about these is that there is no brush nib. There is similar to a chisel nib. It's a little bit more rounded, but it essentially works the same way. But on the other side, instead of a brush nib, there's a fine-tipped nib. It's called a bullet nib. And I use the bullet nib much more than the chisel nib because I'm just not a big fan of chisels altogether. But it stinks that there is no brush nib. Because as you can see, the color comes out a lot smaller, and it takes a much longer time to fill large areas. But the colors of these two are very similar. And just for a little show, here's the other side. Covers a much larger area much quicker, but you would think that I'd use it more often, but no, I don't. So the thing that I really like about the Prismacolor is that, one, the color does come out a lot juicier and lays flatter, but I love how vibrant they are. They're not shiny. Like, as you can see, I have my light sources up here with my finger. It's up there, and the Copic's a lot shinier looking than the Prismacolor, and that might just be because of the way the light is hitting it on the angle. But I find that in my works of art too. Usually the Prismacolor is a lot less shiny and it has a much denser color. I really like the way the Prismacolors come out. It's just the only thing that bothers me is the brush nib not being there. But the good news is they do have some markers, which I figured out way too late, that do have the brush nib. Here I have Aquamarine, and you see this little swivel. It's up on the label too. That means that this one has a brush nib. Thank God! Solves my problems. Only thing I don't like about the brush nib on the Prismacolor markers, though, is that it's a lot more flexible, so when you're actually coloring with it, it bends a lot. As you can see, it's like swaying as I color. And that's not a huge deal. Like, obviously I can function just fine without it, with it being that way. But here's this color as a comparison. With the Copic markers, it's more like firm. See, instead of just the tip swirling around, the entire thing will move a little bit. With Prismacolor, the very, very tip of it is the only part that, moves around. And when I'm using markers for a small detail, I'm paying attention to only the tip, and then for Prismacolor, it's kind of hard to control. And it messes me up a little bit, but like I said, it's not the end of the world. Okay, so, enough with Prismacolor. The next brand that I've used before is the Blick Studio Markers. Now, I bought these a very long time ago, and I bought them individually, too. The same thing goes with the Prismacolor ones. I never bought these in a set or anything. I would pick them up individually in stores. Or for these ones, I ordered them off the Blick website because they're much cheaper. But these markers are extremely similar to the Prismacolor markers. And I know that they've updated these since I bought them, so the markers that I have look a bit different than they do now. But the good news is, their new markers will be all improvements. So anything good that I have to say about these is going to be the same with the newer versions, and just more better things. So the one I have with me right now is Very Berry. And like I said, it is extremely similar to the Prismacolor ones. As you can see, they have the same shape and the same looking caps too. They're the same length, basically the same width, like everything's the same. But their chisel nib is much thinner. Oh, let's just let this focus. And like I said, so similar. They also don't have a brush nib, only this little bullet nib. But it's not the end of the world. You hear that? That's a juicy marker. And that was really corny, but it's okay. I love how juicy they are. I'm going to be saying juicy a whole lot in this video, but that's just how it goes. This marker is so old, and you can see the way it's still coming out. The color is nice and flat and dense and dark, and I love everything about it. And the one I was going to compare it to, it's not an exact match, but it's close enough, it's a sketch marker, actually. It is this one. And this is a newer one, so this will come out juicy too, thank God. Oh, look at that, it is a pretty good match. So, not that many differences between them, thank goodness. And the Blick Studio markers were much, much cheaper last time I checked. For all these markers, you know, in my heart, I go to Copic's first. It's just my go-to. But when I use them together in the same project, there's no differences that you can see. And if any of you guys are on a serious budget and really want to get markers like this, they're all alcohol-based markers. They all come out the same way. And I honestly think it's worth it to try new brands. Because if it saves you money, you can buy more of them. You can have a better supply of markers. And the reason that I kept branching out into other brands is because I was looking for a better color selection. And I know there is a ton of Copic marker colors, but at the stores that I'd go to, there wasn't the biggest selection, and I'd always be looking for these few colors that I could never find. For a while, I was trying to find like this pale, rich yellow color, and I don't even know if I found it or not, but now I have so many different colored yellows in different brands, just because I kept trying to find this one color. And the thing I did was I went straight to other brands, and I think it was a good idea, honestly, because now I have a better understanding of how different markers work, and I can be comfortable with different types of things. In my art class at school, we only use Prismacolor markers because that's just what the school could afford. And now that I've tried them before, I feel much more comfortable in my art class. And whenever we do anything with markers, I'm set. And people ask me for help, and ooh, that makes me happy. So anyway, moving on. So the last brand I have to talk about is the Windsor Newton brush markers. I only have good things to say about this brand, but the only thing is that I only own this black marker. The last time that my black marker died, I ran out to grab a new one, and this was the first brand that I saw. And for some reason, I just grabbed this one. It might have been the cheapest one, I don't even know. I usually go for Prismacolor black markers because they look identical to Copic black markers, and they're cheaper. And I go through black markers so quickly, so whenever I need one, I usually grab a Prismacolor. I'm not sure if I just wanted to try something new, or if someone else bought this from me, I have no idea, but I ended up with this marker, and I'm happy that I did. So, Windsor Newton brush marker is kind of like the second version of the Pro markers. And the only difference between the Pro marker and the brush marker is the brush. These ones have a brush nib, thank God. And I think that might have been why I grabbed it, just because it was appealing to me because of the brush nib. And I've heard of them before. I've heard other people talk about them and say good things about them. But whenever I'd buy my black markers, I would always make sure that I grabbed the Prismacolor one with the brush nib. Because I really just can't sacrifice my brush nib, man. I love it. So, just like all other markers, it has a brush nib and a chisel nib. And honestly, I am not sure why chisel nibs are so popular. The chisel nib is like the staple. Like, everything has a chisel nib. And I don't know anybody that uses the chisel nib. I know I don't. I just don't get it, man. So, like I said, only good things to say about this marker. It comes out nice and flat, rich. I really love the way it feels coming off. But you can see that the tip kind of sways a little. But like I said, just with the Prismacolor, it's fine. The tip is just a little more flexible than Copic marker tips. So, Copic markers can come with what's called various ink, which I have one bottle of right here. And it's a refill for your marker. This is for E50. This is the skin tone that I always use. But for Prismacolor and the Blick Studio markers, there are no refills. Which is another thing that people don't like about those brands of markers. Because once your marker dies, that's just the end. You have to buy a new marker. Which can cost you a lot of pocket money if it's a marker that you use often, like the black marker. But for Copics, if you have a color that you use so often, instead of buying a new marker every time, you can buy an ink bottle, which will refill the marker quite a few times. And that is what I did with the skin tone, and it has saved me a lot of money. So if any of you guys try out these brands, let me know what you think. And also, if anyone has any updates on the Blick Studio markers, also let me know, because I haven't really seen anything from Blick Studio in a very long time. But I do know that they've been making upgrades, and I'm pretty sure that the Blick Studio markers have gotten a little upgrade to them. So maybe Blick Studio is making a comeback and jumping back in here. So let me know what you guys think of these markers, and tell me which ones your favorites are too, or do you just stick to Copic markers? Well anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.